A slightly overcast, but nonetheless, I hope you are going to have a pleasant day. It's a Wednesday and it's December 21, 2022. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, welcoming you to the program Agenda here on Cignal TV, channels 8 and 250. And thanking all of you who are subscribers of Cignal TV, as well as those of you who watch us via Facebook and follow us on YouTube. We also have replays in the afternoon and on weekends. Thank you also to PLDT for their home fiber optic internet. Thank you for your support, Mr. Marco Borlongan. And today, let us be reminded that the holiday rush is still on. It may begin with slow, quiet mornings, but by midday, everything just essentially turns into pandemonium. And I have friends who were coming from the south, coming to Manila to join family, and they said, "See you next year." They all turned back, made the U-turn, and that has been the topic of discussion, if not the icebreaker in many parties and gatherings. Everyone is saying, what on earth has happened to the traffic in Metro Manila? Is anyone in charge of the traffic in Metro Manila, or is it time to shut down Metro Manila? That's going to be part of our discussion later in the show this morning. But before that, let's go to our daily starter. And it goes, I think as you grow older, your Christmas list grows shorter because the gifts you want can't be bought. This is so true, and it is also something that should guide us regarding gift giving among our family members. One lesson I learned is don't give cash to kids. When I say kids, toddlers, maybe up to 3 or 4 years old, because they like things that are gift wrapped, they like things that are shiny, ribbons and all. And I once made the mistake of coming to a Christmas party and just bringing cash because I didn't really know what to buy. And the kids kind of gave me that strange look. It's like, what planet did you come from? Don't you know you're supposed to have gifts in boxes? So for kids, always bring things that are in shiny wrappers, ribbons, etc. But for the most part, because of COVID-19, it would be good if you give serious thought to what presents you give to others, because sometimes a simple thank you letter, a simple gift can be more meaningful than grandiose, expensive packages that, rich people or people who have enough money would say, yeah, what am I going to do with another pen? What am I going to do with another blah, blah, blah? Anyway, just a thought in life. Our wish list gets shorter, and my wish list is definitely to stay healthy in 2023. Let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star, Wednesday, December 21, 2022, and the headline is U.S. slams swarming of China ships in West Philippine Sea. Okay, the United States stands with our ally, the Philippines, in upholding the rules-based international order and freedom of navigation in the South China Sea as guaranteed under international law. That was a statement issued by U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price, supporting the Philippines against the swarming of militia ships and Coast Guard boats in the West Philippine Sea. Meanwhile, at the top of the front page of the Philippine Star, we have DOJ issues lookout bulletin for Bantag and Solweta. the Department of Justice has finally issued an immigration lookout bulletin order for former NBP, New Bilibid Prison Chief Bantag and his assistant Sulweta in case they attempt to leave the country. So there you go. The NBI, PNP, and immigration have been informed. That big photo at the top of the front page of the Philippine Star should serve as a warning to all of you planning to take trips, especially those leaving on Christmas Day. That photo is of travelers lining up to enter the Ninoy Aquino International Airport yesterday. The MIAA expects the number of passengers arriving at NAIA this month to hit 3.5 million due to the holidays. That does not include the number of people leaving through the NAIA this holidays. And a warning to all our friends, viewers, there is already a problem of transport, which is again what we will discuss later, transportation at the NAIA. Actually, the problem seems to be all over. But let's go to the news first. The Philippine National Police beefs up security amid absence of a ceasefire. Since the PNP, NPA have not offered, agreed, or suggested a ceasefire with government forces, the Philippine National Police deems it prudent and apparently necessary to double up on their security measures just in case the NPA or the CCP, CPP, Communist Party of the Philippines, decide to explode firecrackers of the terrorist type during these holidays. Okay. Meanwhile, DOE warns public versus use of energy-saving devices. The Department of Energy is warning consumers, please do not buy all those alleged energy-saving devices because they have not found a single one that is actually real or delivers on its claim. Kumbaga, no, wala pa silang nakikitang tunay. Wala pa. Walang totoo. Puro peke. Puro fake. But the problem here is that aside from not really saving energy, it costs you money to buy them, and then the risk of fire or short circuits in your electrical system. Okay, many fires start by that or through that. Okay, at the center of the Philippine Star, we have a photo of President Bongbong Marcos observing the outgoing and incoming chief, okay, of the Philippine Air Force. Okay, outgoing Philippine Air Force Chief, Lieutenant General Anthony Canlas, on the left, shakes hands with his successor, Major General Stephen Pareño, as President Marcos looks on during a change of command ceremony at the Villamor Air Base in Pasay City. The President reiterated that the Philippines is committed to have a world-class Air Force as part of its upgrade and modernization of the armed forces of the Philippines for security, for disaster response, and for other missions. Okay. Meanwhile, there is a new personality at Malacanang in terms of information. TV personality is new palace briefer in the person of Daphne Osenia Paez. She has been named as the new Malacanang press briefer who will help amplify President Marcos's message and his government's programs to the public. Okay, So yan po, she will be the press briefer. She is not the spokesperson. She will directly interact with Malacanang reporters. Okay, below that, we have a photo of Wilcon Depot officials and retailers launching its 10th store this year, the 83rd store nationwide, located in Barangay Apulid, Paniki, Tarlac. And to the left of that, the last two bits of news, you have a photo of a portrait of the late Communist Party of the Philippines founder, Jose Maria Sison, a.k.a. Joma Sison, be set up next to flowers for a tribute at the University of the Philippines in Quezon City. Last but not the least, a low-pressure area entered the Philippine area of responsibility of the coast of Mindanao yesterday and will bring rains as it moves closer to the landmass. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, said the low-pressure area was monitored 275 kilometers east of General Santos City, and there is a low likelihood that the low-pressure area will develop into a tropical cyclone as it remains almost stationary. And that is about it for the front page of the Philippine Star today, December 21, 2022. Okay, now let's get on with our topic for the day. And we are going to talk about transport and the mess that we are in the Philippines. Gab, let's roll out the intro video, please.
Robert Siy is convener of Move as One, a coalition composed of groups and individuals advocating for an inclusive transportation system. He publishes his opinions on the latest transport-related issues in his column in the Manila Times. Siy is also an economist who previously worked at the World Bank and Asian Development Bank.
Okay, good morning to you, Robert. Welcome. I believe you've been in the program before, haven't you?
Many times, Cito. Good morning. And if you're inviting me, that means traffic is getting really bad.
Well, I don't know about that, but that seems to be a annual event in the Philippines at this time of the year. I suppose it happens globally, but apparently things were so bad these last few days, and some of my friends who were driving from Batangas going to Metro Manila, they could only stand it halfway. After the midway point, they just got off the nearest exit ramp and circled back to Batangas, and they said, forget it. Our family members love us, but we don't love the traffic. So what's your assessment, Robert? You know, this is something you're passionate about, transport, inclusivity in transportation, and people, especially among the labor groups, have been saying that we need to have pro-people transport and not pro-rich and famous transport.
That's definitely, a key message, Cito. Even before the pandemic, if you recall, traffic was already bad, but what was significant was public transport was very much already inadequate during the period before the pandemic. If you recall, there were already very long queues. People were waking up, 2 or 3 hours before their work starts or their school starts just to get ready. And we could already see that there were significant gaps between yung supply of public transport and the demand. And what I can say as an observer of the transport situation, things have gotten a lot worse during the pandemic. Why? In my estimate, the supply has actually diminished by about 30%. Yung buses or jeepneys natin, the supply or the capacity has actually declined because many have gone out of business. If you recall, yung lockdowns and then increase in fuel, many drivers went back to provinces to find other livelihood. So we are left today.
Robert, if you
Yes.
don't mind my asking, is this anecdotal or is this based on some survey or statistical data that was recently released? Because that is very disturbing. Many people in the billboard industry have been saying that the traffic volume has
Yes.
increased. The MMDA has said that, I think if I remember, it was the MMDA who said that they have noted a 25% increase in volume this holiday season.
Yes.
And now you're saying that there's approximately a 30% decrease in public transportation options?
Yes. You see, today, even LTFRB does not have a clear picture of the actual supply. They know how many franchises have been issued. They know roughly how many vehicles may have registrations and franchises, but we don't really know. We have no way of determining how many vehicles on each route are actually running. And this is a serious information gap. And what I'm telling you is from my personal discussions with many transport operators, many people who understand what's going on. And what I've heard is that they are all talking about major reductions in the actual supply of public transport because many of their vehicles are not operating or no longer operating. So there are many reasons. In some cases, the vehicles are dilapidated, have not been maintained in 2 years. They don't have enough money to actually bring them back into operating conditions. So that's one. Another is the questionable viability of running the public transportation service. So yung mga estimates of many operators are, given both yung fuel increase and yung traffic situation, the fares that we have today cannot assure yung mga drivers and operators of making sufficient income, sufficient profit to run the vehicle. So what we are seeing is people are just going out when they see the conditions are good, pero kung matraffic, if you have also a situation where it's going to be difficult to actually maneuver around the route, people are staying home, the drivers are staying home. So this is another situation we face. It is now a major crisis, as we have seen, and this is making us a more car-dependent society. People have no choice, or they feel they have no choice except to buy a car or a motorcycle. And that, of course, is increasing the volume of vehicles on our roads. And one lesson we need to learn is there is no way we can expand our roads and bridges fast enough to keep up with the growth of vehicles. We have to use a different approach to fight our traffic situation and improve mobility. And it has to do with improving public transport, walking, and cycling. This is the proven formula all over the world. So this is where the resources have to be focused rather than on expanding roads and bridges or expressways in major cities.
Yeah, but how feasible are your ideas? Because as far as government is concerned, the prehistoric. Uh, I don't know how to term it, Robert, but the Jurassic mentality of legislators, even up to now, is that, and also government officials, administrations, is that the measure of their performance and their success is based on the number of infrastructure that they put up, especially roads. And that's why these jokers break up highways all over the country, in Metro Manila, in the provinces, because they need to break up the roads so they can make new roads. It's a never-ending cycle of stupidity and greed.
Yes, we have to flip our objectives. It cannot be, as you say, measuring performance in terms of just infrastructure, or even yung objective of making vehicles move faster. We need to think of a performance objective that is people-oriented. And that
when you say people, or when you say people-oriented, the critics or the commentators will say, ayan na naman tayo, people-oriented na naman, everybody wants a train, everybody wants a subway, etc. But it takes 10 years in the Philippines to complete those projects. So, or are you talking about buses? Because we have the EDSA carousel bus, and that's not even coming close to meeting the need.
So what can we do in the short term? And in the short term, for me, it's basically using our existing road space and allocating our existing road space for the travel modes that are most efficient and can move the largest number of people. So what are these? This is really about prioritizing yung lanes, road lanes, for public transport, walking, and cycling. And the EDSA carousel has demonstrated that if you dedicate a lane to public transport and just put buses or jeepneys on that without interference from private vehicles, it can move in a highly efficient way and reduce yung travel times. So this is what we need on every route where we have a high volume of public transport. We need to organize it that way.
I just came up with a really crazy idea. Maybe the government should just rip out all of the chairs in all of those buses, standing room only. I mean, you would think EDSA is so short. Okay, it is so short with the EDSA carousel lane. It is so much faster now. If they just removed all of those chairs and everybody just stood and point to point lang or getting off, you would have more people on those buses, and it's not going to kill them to stand for 10 minutes or 15 minutes on a bus instead of standing for hours in a queue waiting to get into a bus.
Well, Cito, the design of the city bus, that's a good point. But I think the design of the city bus tries to balance also yung needs of both different people in the population. There are lots of people also who use public transport who need to sit. You also have persons with disability.
Yeah, you can have those special buses for special needs. But for the general population of commuters, why not just have buses that have no chairs?
I think that's certainly possible, and we see that sometimes in yung transport from let's say planes.
From the airport
to the terminal, right? So that vehicle is everyone standing, and you could also have that, and it could load a very large number of people. So that's also possible, certainly, to increase capacity. One bus with everyone standing can carry more than 100 people, while if you have standing and sitting, your maximum might be only about 60 or 70.
Okay, what happened to all that modernization chatter of the former administration of the DOTR? They kept talking about modernization, that we're going to have more efficient mini buses or vans, etc. I mean,
we need to continue that. Actually, what happened was just simply looking at the budget allocations over the years, there was a continuing decline. And in the 2023 budget, we see zero for the modernization of our public transport vehicles. So we need to restore that budget, because we need that budget not only to refleet, but to expand the number of vehicles on every route. And just, orders of magnitude, Cito, for the same amount that we are investing in the Metro Manila subway, and the subway is important, 500 billion, we could replace all the buses and jeepneys in the entire country. That same amount. So we need to think of how we can do that, because we need to do that. Otherwise, as we know, many of our jeepneys are already 40 years old or more, some of them. They need to be replaced now. We also need to expand the number of vehicles on every route. Today, we are looking at routes where, the number of franchised vehicles has not changed in 15 years. And that is for most of the routes all over the country. Mm-hmm. We are creating our own problems by the inaction on our public transport situation. So that's a little bit of the background. We have not actually increased the number of vehicles on routes in over a decade.
Yeah, but one of the problem. You are with Move as One coalition. So your first suggestion is that we put in modes of transport or vehicles that are people-oriented, volume-oriented, and efficiency-oriented. Now, but at the end of the day, you can put in, these long buses, this train-like buses that's being suggested now, but you're still stuck on EDSA. Is it? It's a chicken or the egg situation. Where can we start? Because some of my friends, my wife and I have started to walk again. We just simply leave we are down to one car. And we don't even take the car except to go to Lipa, to Batangas to go out of town. But otherwise, we just walk or we just stay home because it just doesn't make sense.
So, Cito, that's a very good point. So from the policy point of view, we should try to think of how we can minimize also the trips. So to the extent that government and the private sector can also promote like work from home, that remains one of the best things to do to reduce the demand. But walking is very, all of us are pedestrians.
Yeah, but Robert, we have a problem here. I agree with you that we should promote work from home.
Yes.
But our friends in the business community are all pushing for face-to-face school, face-to-face work, etc. But you can't do face-to-face because you're all facing forward, stuck in traffic.
We need to balance those objectives. And, today, to try to force through a physical reporting in every situation, I think it's also a recipe for disaster. We need to adjust wherever we can actually balance yung objectives, also the personal objectives of our employees. Today, I would say most people who are commuting are spending 4 hours or more trying to travel to and from work. We have to think of the physical cost of that and also the mental health cost of that. I think that also is a factor that our officials and employers need to consider. But going back to your point about, walking, pedestrian infrastructure is so important, and that's one of the things that can be improved almost immediately.
Robert, let's go for a quick break. And when we return, let's talk about all of those options: pedestrian infrastructure, I have been yapping and yapping about motorcycle lanes, dedicated motorcycle lanes, bike lanes, etc. But is that even feasible when most of the decisions are made by local governments who are only in office for 3 years at the most, and then have to be re-elected, etc. And the MMDA is composed of 3 year term, 3 year politicians. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and joining us today is the convener, transport economist, Move as One Coalition, convener Robert Siy. Robert, what exactly is a transport economist?
You know, a lot of people talk about transportation in terms of structures, but today we need to think about transportation as a multidisciplinary challenge. And of course, economics is a big part. How do we make it viable, for both the industry as well as people who use the transportation system? Mm-hmm. And also, how do we manage demand? Managing demand is also important. So we often talk about the supply side, but sometimes there are also a lot we can do on the demand side to reduce our demand for travel. So this is one of the things where transport economists can actually play a big part in terms of shaping the vision.
Okay, now we've been talking about all sorts of solutions, making bigger, putting in bigger vehicles, buses to have more passengers. You were talking about walking and the need for pedestrian infrastructure. Now, I don't know, para tayong sirang plaka eh. We're talking about pedestrian infrastructure, and you walk around here in my village or in our village here in Capitolio, Barangay Capitolio, you cannot walk a straight path on any sidewalk because sooner or later you are going to bump into somebody's flower garden that has occupied the sidewalk, or multiple steel posts that bear signages of different companies, etc., or uneven sidewalks. And will we ever see a day when all sidewalks in the Philippines are going to be uniform?
This is really an indicator of how great a country is and how livable its cities are. It's all about the quality of its sidewalks. And with that as your measure, we have probably one of the most unlivable cities, just measured by the quality of its sidewalks. So this is something we all need to change. You and I, and especially, we have to think of the welfare of persons with disabilities. If you have an uneven sidewalk, that means that it's not usable for anyone, with crutches, on a wheelchair. It renders them homebound or immobile. And that is, taking away their right to mobility. So
You
one
know,
day it will all be like that,
it's interesting, Richard, because Robert. It's interesting, Robert, because when I went for that walk recently, it ended up as a 6 kilometer walk from my house to EDSA Shangri-La Mall, and we noticed that there were sidewalks that were 6 inches high, or no, mostly 8 inches high, and there were sidewalks that were a foot and a half high.
Yes.
And there would be ramps, no ramps, etc. And I'm saying, can we just shoot all of the road engineers that designed all of these sidewalks? Because you can't. They're unusable. People will get into accidents just trying to get onto them or off them.
Yes, Cito, the tragedy is we have very specific laws and regulations which require proper infrastructure that is accessible for persons with disabilities. But this is a law which has been around for 40 years. This is a Marcos era, Marcos Sr. era law, called the accessibility law. But we know it has not been enforced. It has not been really implemented to any great degree. And we have to ask ourselves why. And whoever is responsible, we should hold them accountable, or we should find ways to hold them accountable, because of their negligence, we are seeing this pathetic pedestrian situation.
Okay, now, as a transport economist, as a convener of Move as One Coalition, what is your assessment of our situation, both in transport, in infrastructure, and in terms of means of mobility? Because some people say, "Wala, it will always be like that," or people are saying to me now, "It's KKB, kanya-kanyang bisikleta," or everyone find his own solution. So some people are just saying, just move out of Metro Manila, get your offices out of Metro Manila. It's cheaper to live outside Metro Manila, etc., etc.
It's a very good point, Cito. For years, for decades, we have created a very individualistic and also a very car-centric transportation system. And this, what we're seeing today are the results of continued bad policy and practice. What we need is a transformation of our transportation environment and mindset change. We have favored and prioritized the welfare of a very small minority. Nationwide, car owners make up less than 10% of the population, and in Metro Manila, it's only about 12%. And yet, most of our road space is prioritized and continues to be prioritized for private motor vehicles. We need to flip that around and work for the benefit of the vast majority of Filipinos who are actually carless. We need to think, how do we make them more mobile, and how do we create transportation services, public transport, walking and cycling that you and I will use every day. We shouldn't think of public transport as only for the poor or only for the disadvantaged. It needs to be something that has enough quality and convenience that all of us, regardless of income class, will use it every day. That should be the aspiration. Anything short of that, and if we continue to favor private vehicles on our roads, we are just simply headed towards more and more gridlock.
Okay, I had that crazy idea earlier where I said we should field buses standing room only. And then what about fielding buses that are more expensive, but geared, designed specifically so that the car owners will leave their cars or won't use cars anymore? Because that's what everyone keeps saying. Pare, if there is a bus that I can actually take based on a schedule that I will be guaranteed the seat, I will take the bus. I will not take the car. Why will I bother myself with parking, with fuel, with all this stuff? What about that? Have you seen
No.
such a model where people somewhere in other countries pay a premium, but the premium, I mean, like example, sorry, Robert, but we just did the calculations on a bus trip from Mega Mall to Lipa, to SM Lipa, and we computed that it is maybe a third, if not less, of what it costs us to go by bus and than to take a car. And like in Baguio, we always take a tourist bus going to Baguio instead of taking a car because it's just so hard to park. You get arrested, they take away your plate numbers, etc. I said, enough of this garbage, we take the bus. And until, of course, the MMDA removed the garage or the depots on EDSA, it was such a perfect solution. Are there such buses abroad?
No, of course, this is a very good formula. And one example we have here, I don't know if you've ever tried using the P2P buses, which were introduced actually way back in 2016. Christmas season of 2016, if you remember, Cabsec Almendras, announced holiday P2P bus service, and that triggered, the introduction of the P2P bus service. And for a long time, and even today, you can take a bus from Alabang to Makati, and sit on a bus. The problem is that we haven't expanded those routes. Many of those people using P2P buses are former car users.
Yeah.
And they have decided to leave their cars at home and use that bus. But the problem is availability and frequency.
Yeah. It's just like, Fermin, former Undersecretary Fermin Adriano of the DA said in an interview, puro tayo pilot puro tayo piloto, puro tayo testing, but there's a good example, P2P, but it was never really fully implemented, never expanded, and never promoted. So now, hey, okay, give them a star, tapos umuwi na yung estudyante, wala na.
Yeah. It's just, for the photo op and the press release, and that's good enough, but it's not. And the example, for example, sa P2P, you cannot have a service that just leaves every hour. If it's something that people will rely on for their daily commute, it has to be maybe every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes during rush hour.
Well, every hour. Every hour isn't so bad, Robert, as long as it does leave every hour. But, one thing we've learned also, which the Duterte administration, the Estrada, the Arroyo, the Aquino, we've been talking about requiring bus companies to have working telephones, working mobile phones, fixed schedules, etc., online booking. And the DOTC then and the DOTR now can't even get that done. I mean, it's pathetic that you can't even get bus companies to set their own time schedule and have online booking. Parang you have to personally go and pay the ticket 2-3 days ahead and then go there for the trip. I mean, how crazy and stupid is that?
You're right, Cito. These are technologies that have been around for more than 25 years in other countries. People already, have these as conveniences that are part of everyday life. But here, we're still struggling to have it. So you're right. We need to have, you know, higher standards and higher expectations of
But
our.
where's the problem, Robert? Is the problem because there is no bus SAR? Should the government, like in the time of former First Lady Imelda Marcos, have control of the love bus? Like in Holland, in the Netherlands, the buses are run by the state or by the city.
Maybe I can give, you know, sort of one explanation.
Mm.
Of course, we know there is limited technical capacity today within our transportation agencies. We need to expand that. But
Okay.
where we have limited capacity, we have chosen in the last administration to focus on railways. And railways are very important. You know, the North-South commuter rail, Metro Manila subway, those are good examples. But the problem is if you focus almost all your energies just on making those railway projects work, because railways still take maybe 8 to 10 years to actually deliver. And we need results today. So kailangan balanse. We need to have balanced attention also to road-based public transport and active transport, meaning walking and cycling. So those two things.
But who's in charge?
Yes.
Who's in charge, Robert? Because all I ever hear is LTFRB regulator for franchises. But
Yes.
who's in charge of managing this system, this bus, this road-based system of transport? Kasi parang walang in charge eh. Puro ang dami mong ASEC, undersecretary. But when you say, is there an intelligent individual with a brain running this system?
This is a problem. We have had a deficit in that transportation planning capacity. Also, in terms of the institutional structure, it's always someone else's problem, you know? So LTFRB will say, well, we regulate, but we're not supposed to plan. And the part of the problem is we have become used to a business model where the transport operator is the one that raises his or her hand to provide the service. It is based on individual initiative. What we know or what we have learned worldwide is you need to have a integrated, coordinated plan at a higher level that is then developed and refined over time to meet the travel demand that emerges. And right now we are missing that function of planning and coordinating the public transport services that people can enjoy.
Okay, you've worked with the World Bank and the ADB. And am I correct that I know in other countries, bus systems is under the Metro Bus Transit Authority or something. We don't have anything like that here.
You know, one thing we used to have, and goes back again to the Marcos Sr. period. You used to have a governor of Metro Manila with control over the different LGUs. And if there's one thing that we should push for from that Marcos era, it is again strong metropolitan government. That's one of the things we need today. And one other aspect which you find successful in other countries like Singapore or in metropolitan areas like London, you have a metropolitan public transport authority that integrates bus, rail, ferry, integrated. You don't have, separate lines that are not connected to each other or not connected to other modes.
You don't
So
have
these
like
are two
you don't
things.
have a Pasig River ferry that
Yes,
docks, and
yes.
then there is
And
no
then
other ride waiting,
no transport, no public transport to
no
connect.
connection.
Yes. So this is one of the things that I hope this administration can work on, because
Yeah.
again, it was a good idea from 40 years ago.
Yeah, but what's missing? What has to be done? Because I mean, you know, Filipinos are smart. Filipinos are, bright. We have all the technical experts, engineers, etc. But they're all spread out, and as you said, they're silos, kanya-kanya. Why is every government failing to consolidate?
You know, in the past, we have focused on projects because, like you say, projects make good sound bites. Projects give you the appearance of doing something. But what we know today, it's not about projects. It's about transforming institutions and transforming our policies. And that's what I hope Secretary Jamie Bautista will work on, because this is really what we need today. We need to have a vision that can transform how we deliver our public transport services and active transport, so that you and I will leave cars at home.
How accessible is the DOTR in terms of suggestions, recommendations, or cooperation with groups like you?
You
Is
know,
it open
yes.
door, or maraming mga nakatambay na doon for the last 50 years and
Yes.
who won't let new ideas come in?
No, definitely. What I find refreshing is that the transport secretary and his team, they are listening, they are open to feedback, and hindi sila pikon. You know, that's, I think, something that is very much welcome, and we hope that will continue. We have lots of problems, but there are many groups that are willing to help and willing to offer their suggestions and feedback. It needs to be welcomed by everyone in a decision-making role.
So, failing to have a Metro Manila governor. And ladies and gentlemen, before you all jump into panic, etc. Nako, magkakaroon na naman tayo ng bagong Imelda. Please be aware of the fact that Metro Manila is the national capital region. When you say region, we are the equivalent of region 1 to whatever, which has vast provinces. These regions would not function the way they function now without governors and without centralized government at those regional levels. We need that in the Philippines, because if we do not, we will have 13 cities and so many kumbaga hari-hari system.
And Cito, if we look at the best cities in the world, when we look at places that, many of us have visited, for example, Seoul, Tokyo, London, these are cities with metropolitan governance, meaning there is an elected official who manages the metropolis, even though you have different small mayors, within that territory.
Mm-hmm.
You have a single metropolitan governance structure. And if you look also at Jakarta and Bangkok, closer to home, again, you have a metropolitan government that is strong. And this also explains why they have better public transport in these areas than what we have today here.
Okay, because to be fair, before all of this deluge of cars and people buying 2-3 cars because of color coding or number coding, the MRT, the LRT worked. I used to take the MRT every day going from Capitolio crossing to ABS-CBN for several years, and the only time I stopped was when it just became so unbearable because everybody just kept taking the train. There were no new trains. They weren't, the frequencies were so low. And so they just got jam-packed and unbearable. But trains work, and that's what we need. Now, Robert, from an economic perspective, what is at risk if we are not able to do something within the next 12, 24, or 48 months?
I would say we will continue to suffer continuing decline in terms of our urban environment. And this is really the welfare of the people who are providing, the energy to keep the economy moving. These are our, workers, our young students and graduates. We need to find a better environment for them so that in terms of their physical and mental health, and even, their ability to be more productive, that's at stake, because we cannot subject our most productive Filipinos to a stressful and difficult travel every day, every working day, 4 hours in line. I think that's something that we should find a way to cure. And it means giving special attention to our public transport availability, number one. Number two, active transport, walking and cycling infrastructure, make that available and safe for everyone. So these are my biggest suggestions. We need to provide budgets for that instead of focusing almost all on the railway sector.
Well, it's almost, some people might say, Robert, it's pointless to even rely on government because none of these politicians want to put the money on public transport or mass transit because they won't make a cut. They won't get their cut. Now, what can we in the private sector do about it? I mean, I'm seriously debating over a motorcycle, a scooter, or a bicycle. I just need to decide which modality I will settle for. But for people like you and me and our viewers, what should they do in 2023 in terms of getting around?
The government has invested, both national and local, in improving bike lanes. I think during the pandemic, this was actually one of the silver linings. And for people who are interested to reduce their carbon footprint and even get to work or school faster, this is actually one good solution. And for trips to your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, if it's less than 3 kilometers, a bike is actually, one of the best ways to move around, your particular district or neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So making that choice actually will help to reduce the volume of vehicles on our roads. And that in itself is a good contribution.
I do hope, Robert, that you and your associates can move heaven and earth with the mall owners, mall operators, and public spaces to put genuine bike parking areas so that more and more people, because I heard that is what's turning a lot of people off on bikes. It is such a pain to look for a place to leave your bike, especially in the malls.
That's a very good point, Cito, and this is what we try to, the message we convey to all the property developers, all the mall owners. Please prioritize parking for people on bicycles because, one car space can actually fit 10 bicycles. Mm-hmm. And that actually brings you more business and more customers. You cannot assume that the person on a bicycle is poor because we know today many people of all income classes are using bicycles. partly because it's the most, in a way, efficient form of transportation moving around Metro Manila
Okay.
today.
Well, Robert,
Most
I'm
efficient.
I'm sorry, but we've run out of time, and but I think we've covered it all. Please keep it up. Please keep pushing, promoting your concepts and your suggestions, and you can count on us if you need support, whether through this program and on my column in the Philippine Star. Thank you very much, Robert.
Thanks so much, Cito. Take care. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Same to you, my friend. And now let's go to our blessing for the week. And it goes, the best Christmas gift is to realize how much you already have. May you come to realize how much the good Lord God Almighty has blessed you, and may you be a blessing to others. I'm Cito Beltran, thanking you for watching Agenda. And if you may, and if you could, please keep it here on One News.